Willie D. Live.
What's up, family? Forensics death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan has chimed in on the Nolan Wells case. Joseph believes that the investigators are holding on to Nolan's throat and lungs to preserve evidence and for further testing. Now, does that mean that they suspect foul play? Not necessarily. But they do believe that it could become evidence at some point. So they're holding on to that information. Now, more explicitly, Morgan, this dude, he retained the neck structures, saying that the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office would not simply hold those structures arbitrarily. He said he deduced they saw potential evidentiary value in preserving them. He also emphasized that he did not know exactly why they were retained. Joseph Morgan pushed back on the idea that they were simply missing. He explained that the Mississippi Medical Examiner had taken sections of the lung and the lung tissue could still be examined microscopically. He specifically discussed looking for signs consistent with drowning and raised the question of whether diatom testing had been performed. Joe Scott Morgan isn't saying that the medical examiner found proof of foul play in Nolan's lung. He's saying forensic tissue can be retained and examined because it may have evidentiary value, and in a potential drowning case, what the original medical examiner found in those lungs could be extremely important. The lungs are directly relevant to the drowning question. If drowning is being considered, examination of lung tissue can contribute to the overall forensic assessment. The original medical examiner had access to the evidence. The independent examiner didn't have the same condition. That's why the state's findings matter so much. Mr. Morgan specifically said the lungs weren't necessarily missing. Sections had been taken during the original examination and tissue remained available for histological analysis. All right, family, you know how we do it. Is the doc keeping it real? Is he being authentic? Or is he part of a grand cover-up? I don't think the doc have a dog in this fight, really. I think that he's just going strictly off his professional opinion and he's looking at science. Although such testing has limitations and isn't definitive by itself, the retained neck structures may be even more significant to Morgan's argument. He said he deduced that the state saw some potentially evidentiary value in retaining them, while stressing that he didn't know the actual reason. Here's the deal, fam. A lot of people concerned about people asking questions and not trusting the authorities. I find that suspicious. I find it extremely suspicious when you look at Mississippi's horrible record on race. All of the cover-ups involved in Mississippi. Every damn town, ain't no town exempt. The way law enforcement have been involved in murders. This is proven. This is not just, internet fodder. This is not just somebody's, rumors and stuff, speculation. It's documented that law enforcement has historically been involved in murders in Mississippi, especially black murder, right? Preserving evidence can actually be good investigative practice. If additional testing, consultation, or grand jury proceedings are anticipated, investigators may want important specimens preserved. And they get to say, hey, man, we're being transparent. Look here, look at what we're doing. This gains public confidence for law enforcement. Why wouldn't they want that? They do want that. It's just for certain things, certain communities, they don't give a damn. They work on public confidence daily. This is what they do. They gotta have public confidence. People gotta feel safe. At least the people who got money, right? Who got the majority of the money. They gotta feel safe. The people who got the communities that are progressive, that the city takes care of, that the state takes care of, they gotta feel safe. Or they're gonna leave the community. They're going to abandon the community, and the police ain't gonna have nobody to police. They're gonna have to break down that force. They're gonna have to reduce their manpower. Can't have that. We got to get this money, man. Got to get this money. So what we got to do is make all these good white people feel safe. They ain't safe now. We know they ain't safe. They ain't even safe with us. But we just got to give them the illusion of being safe. We got to make them think they're safe because they're not safe. Their children aren't safe. But we got to make them think they're safe. And if there's anybody to fear, they should fear the blacks or the Mexicans or the immigrants. Don't fear each other, even though white people kill more white people than anybody on the planet. It is amazing how they do that. And it is amazing how God created us to not have, how he created so many of us to not have no damn sense at all. That's crazy to me. Maybe he created us to have some sense, but he didn't give us any guardrails to protect us from consuming the BS, and being gullible to propaganda. Because it's so many people. I'm talking about tens of millions. Cuckoo, straight up cuckoo. Ain't got the sense God gave them. And it don't matter what kind of education they have. It's an old saying. If you send a fool to college, he'll come back an educated fool. That is true. There are people out there who think that they're actually better than others because they're educated and they live in a nice house. They live in a nice community. And, their kids go to the top schools and they straight up cuckoo. Some of them straight up demons. Straight demons, straight murderers, killers. Yeah. They do all kinds of stuff. Some of them work for companies or own companies that release airborne chemicals into communities that they know is killing people. They'll step on anybody to get what they want as long as they still can be able to say, I never. They get somebody else to do the dirty work. They keep their hands clean. You think all of these senators and Congress members and state reps and stuff, you think these city councilmen and mayors don't have issues from time to time? You think they ain't got to put hands on somebody from time to time? But you never hear about it, do you? Yeah, fam. Yeah, that's how I go. That's how I go. I know I'm getting a little off track here, but let me bring it on back in. Let me bring it back in. I believe Nolan Wells was murdered. I believe that if there was a thorough investigation done, that the evidence would be sufficient to prove that. I believe that there are people in the Ocean Springs community being protected. There are people who are insulated by their money, privilege, and connections, who may not ever have to face justice because there's so many layers of protection and there's so many layers of corruption that keeps them out of harm's way. And I think from the moment that Nolan Wells stopped breathing, the wheels of injustice were in motion. But what say you, fam? Drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. No more talk.